"There's room in my heart for you this Christmas," he said to the Apache mother fleeing with her. The winter air was sharp and cold, cutting through the thin layers of clothing that Nokomis wore. Snow blanketed the ground, making every step heavy and slow. The world around her was quiet, except for the distant howl of wolves and the occasional rustle of branches under the weight of ice. Her children, little feet dragging in the snow, clung to her skirts as they stumbled along the uneven path, pounded with both fear and determination. She could not let anyone take her children. She would keep them safe, even if it meant walking through the harshest cold, even if it meant facing danger at every turn. They had left their village weeks ago, running before the soldiers arrived. The memory of the raid haunted Nokomis still. The shouts, the smoke, the terrified cries of her people. She had seen friends fall, houses burn, and families torn apart. She had promised herself in that moment of chaos that she would survive and carry her children to safety. Every time she looked back, she saw only devastation. Ahead of her, she saw hope, a faint, uncertain hope that somewhere, beyond the hills and the frozen forests, they could find a place to live in peace. Her eldest, a boy named Kiona, tried to keep his spirits up. "Mother, we can rest soon, right?" he asked, his voice trembling with cold and exhaustion.
His small hands were red from the icy wind, and his cheeks were streaked with dirt and tears.
Nokomis bent down and hugged him close. "Soon, my child," she said softly. "We will find a place to rest. You must be strong." "We're almost there." Behind him, her youngest little island struggled to keep up. The child's tiny legs sank into the snow with every step. Nokomis scooped him up into her arms, feeling the weight of both his body and the fear that clung to him. "Shh, it's okay, my little one," she whispered. "We are safe as long as we are together." Aylin's eyes, wide and trusting, looked up at her, and she forced herself to smile, even though her own heart was heavy. The forest around them seemed endless. Tall pine trees, heavy with snow, stretched toward the gray sky. Every sound echoed in the stillness. The cracking of a branch, the soft fall of snow from a tree limb, the distant call of a bird. Nokomis had learned to move silently, to listen for danger. She knew that the soldiers were searching for families like hers, and that even a single misstep could bring disaster. Each shadow in the trees made her pause. Each sound made her heart race. Yet she could not stop. She had to keep moving, for her children's sake. At night they huddled together under the bare branches of a pine tree, using whatever blankets and cloth she could carry. Nokomis kept watch while her children slept, her eyes scanning the forest for any signs of movement. The cold seeped through everything, biting her fingers and toes despite the layers she wore. Breath. She shivered but did not let her fear show. She sang softly to her children, a quiet lullaby her mother had taught her, hoping to ease their dreams. The snow fell gently around them, covering their small shelter like a thin blanket, and for a moment they felt hidden from the world. During the day they moved again. Nokomis led them through narrow paths, avoiding the open fields where they could easily be seen. She hunted small animals, gathered berries, and melted snow for water. The children learned quickly, helping her carry what she could find. Every meal was hard-earned, every sip of water a relief. Nokomis felt the weight of responsibility more heavily than ever. Her own hunger was a secondary concern. Her children's survival came first. On one afternoon when the sun was barely above the horizon, Nokomis paused to catch her breath. The forest opened into a small clearing, and she took a moment to scan the area. Her eyes fell on a distant plume of smoke. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be a friendly settlement, or was it a sign of danger? She kept her children close, whispering instructions. "Stay behind me," she said. "Do not make a sound. We will watch and see." They crouched low in the snow, barely breathing as she studied the smoke. It appeared to come from a single cabin, smoke rising steadily from its chimney. There was no movement around it, no soldiers, no riders. Perhaps, she thought, it was a chance to rest. Perhaps it was the help they so desperately needed. Breaths. As they approached, her anxiety grew. She did not know the people inside. Narration. She did not know if they would welcome her or chase her away. Yet hunger, exhaustion, and hope pushed her forward. But Turkey. She guided the children carefully to the edge of the forest, where they could see the cabin more clearly. The walls were sturdy, made of logs stacked neatly, and the roof was covered in snow. Smoke continued to rise from the chimney, and the warm glow of firelight shone through the small window. It looked safe. It looked like refuge. Kiona, sensing her hesitation, whispered, "Mother, can we go there?" Nokomis held his hand tightly. "We will, my child, but we must be careful."
We do not know who is inside. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever awaited them.
She had learned that the world could be cruel, but she also knew that kindness could be found in unexpected places. She just hoped this cabin held that kindness. As they drew closer, she noticed the footprints in the snow. They were human, recent, and led toward the cabin. Breaths. She paused, scanning the area. The footprints were large, suggesting an adult man. Nokomis's mind raced. Could he be a threat? Despair. She had no way of knowing. Yet the warmth, the light, the possibility of food and shelter called to her. She motioned for the children to stay hidden behind a fallen tree. She crept forward, stepping lightly in the snow, trying to make as little sound as possible. A man emerged from the cabin carrying a bucket of water. He was tall and wore simple clothing, suitable for the harsh winter. Psst. He did not notice her at first, and she took a careful step closer. His eyes were kind, but cautious. He seemed aware of the forest around him, alert to danger. Nokomis's heart pounded. She did not know what to say, how to ask for help. Yet she knew that if they did not speak to him, they might not survive the night. Gee. She took a deep breath and stepped into view. The man froze, startled at first. Then he saw the children, huddled behind her. His eyes softened. He did not speak harshly. He did not raise his hand. Brett. Instead, he set down the bucket and took a cautious step toward them. "Are you cold? Hungry?" he asked, his voice gentle. Nokomis looked at him, searching for any hint of deceit, but saw none. She nodded slightly, unsure of her voice. "Yes, very hungry," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but the words carried hope. The man motioned for them to follow him. "Come inside," he said. "You can rest by the fire. You are safe here."
Nokomis hesitated only a moment, then led her children forward. For the first time in weeks, warmth touched her skin.
The smell of burning wood filled her nose, and the soft glow of the fire made the room feel safe and alive. She felt her shoulders relax slightly, though caution still lingered in her mind. As they settled by the fire, the man, who introduced himself as Samuel, brought blankets and warm food. The children's eyes lit up at the sight of bread and stew. Her heart swelling with relief. She whispered a quiet prayer of thanks, feeling the weight of the journey ease just a little. Perhaps, she thought, this winter night could mark a turning point. Perhaps, in the kindness of this stranger, they might find the hope they had been searching for. And so, on that cold winter night, in a small cabin surrounded by snow, Nokomis held her children close. Breath. For the first time in many days, she allowed herself a small measure of peace. Outside, the wind howled and the snow fell silently. But inside, the warmth of fire and the presence of an unexpected helper made the world feel a little safer. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight she had hope. Nokomis sat by the fire watching her children eat their first warm meal in days. The smell of bread and stew made her stomach ache with hunger, but she waited until the children had eaten enough before taking a bite herself. Samuel, the man who had offered them shelter, watched them with quiet attention. There was no rush, no questions about where they had come from or what they had lost. He only offered them warmth and food. In that small cabin, surrounded by the harsh winter outside, the three of them began to feel something they had not felt in a long time: safety. After the meal, Samuel brought more blankets from a small chest near the wall.
You can use these, he said kindly. The nights are cold and you need to stay warm. Nokomis took one and wrapped it around her shoulders, then helped her children with theirs.
Kiona, her eldest, looked around the cabin with wide eyes. "Mother," he whispered, "it feels like a different world in here."
Nokomis smiled softly, brushing the snow from his hair.
Brave. Yes, my child. For now, we can rest. Let us hope tomorrow brings even more peace. The children curled up together on the floor near the fire, and Nokomis sat across from Samuel, studying him carefully. He looked older than she had first thought, with lines around his eyes that suggested a life filled with hard work and perhaps loss. Yet there was a gentleness in his expression, a calmness that made her feel that he could be trusted. She still did not know the full story, nor did she want to reveal too much about her own past until she felt certain they were safe. But the warmth of the cabin and the fire had a quiet way of easing her fears, even just a little. Samuel broke the silence after a moment. "It is hard to survive out there alone," he said quietly. "I have seen many people struggle in the snow. You are brave to make it this far with your children." Nokomis nodded, her hands folded in her lap. "I have no choice," she said. "They are my life. I cannot leave them." Her voice was steady, but Samuel could sense the exhaustion behind it. She had been walking for weeks, fighting hunger, cold, and fear, breaths. Yet she had survived. That alone spoke of her strength. The snowstorm outside raged on, and they spoke little after that. Samuel moved about the cabin quietly, tending the fire and making small preparations for the night. Nokomis watched him, noticing the way he carefully arranged the wood, the way he checked the windows and doors to ensure no drafts let in the cold.
He seemed like a man who lived simply but with care, someone who understood the value of safety and comfort.
It was reassuring, and Nokomis felt herself letting down the walls she had built so tightly around her heart. As the evening wore on, Nokomis told her children it was time to sleep. Kiona rested his head against her shoulder, while little Aelin clutched at her hand. Nokomis stayed awake a little longer, watching the fire and thinking about the journey ahead. They had survived one night, but she knew that the world outside was still dangerous. She thought about her village, about the friends and family she had left behind. She felt sadness, but also determination. She would keep moving forward, no matter what. And perhaps, she thought, with Samuel's help, they could find a place where they would not have to run anymore. The next morning, the sun rose weakly over the snowy landscape. The wind had calmed, and the snow glistened in the soft light. Nokomis woke her children and helped them get dressed in the warm blankets Samuel had provided. Breaking, he had left a small pile of extra clothing near the fire. and she helped her children put them on. The warmth of the clothes and the bright light of day lifted their spirits. For the first time in weeks, they felt a small sense of normalcy. After breakfast, Samuel spoke again.
"If you wish, you can stay here for a few days," he said. "There is food, firewood, and water."
He glances around in dispute. "You do not have to leave immediately." Nokomis hesitated.
She had learned to be cautious, to trust carefully. But she also knew that this could be the first chance to rest properly, to regain strength for the journey ahead. She looked at her children, who were already smiling and exploring the cabin with curiosity. She nodded slowly. "We will stay for a little while," she said, "just until we can plan the next step." Over the next days, Nokomis and her children slowly settled into the rhythm of the cabin. They helped Samuel with small tasks, fetching firewood, gathering water, and even learning how to cook simple meals. Samuel taught them patiently, showing them how to be careful with the fire and how to preserve food in the cold. Kiona and Island laughed more than they had in weeks, and Nokomis felt her own heart lighten. The presence of another person, one who was kind and gentle, reminded her that not everyone in the world was cruel or dangerous. One afternoon, as snowflakes fell softly outside the window, Samuel and Nokomis sat together by the fire. They spoke quietly, sharing stories. Samuel told of his life in the cabin, how he had lived alone after losing his family many years ago. He spoke of the struggles, the loneliness, and the small joys he had found in the simple life. Nokomis listened carefully, feeling a strange comfort in his words. She realized that they both had known loss and hardship, yet both had survived. Their experiences, though different, had shaped them into people who valued life and kindness above all else. Nokomis finally shared some of her own story. She spoke of her village, of the raids that had forced her to flee, and of the responsibility she carried for her children. She did not speak of every detail, for some memories were too painful. But she gave Samuel enough to understand her courage and her love. Samuel listened without judgment, offering empathy instead. He did not pity her. He respected her strength and the sacrifices she had made. In that moment, a quiet trust formed between them, one built on shared understanding and mutual respect. The days passed, and the children grew stronger, their laughter echoing through the cabin. They explored the snow outside, building small snow figures and playing simple games. Kiona discovered how to throw small snowballs safely, while Aelin simply enjoyed the feel of snow on his hands and face. Nokomis watched them with pride and relief, feeling hope bloom in her heart. The harsh journey they had endured was not forgotten, but for a brief time they could live without fear. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Samuel asked gently, "Do you plan to continue your journey soon?"
Nokomis thought for a moment. "Yes," she said quietly.
"We must keep moving. There may be others like us, and we cannot stop until we are truly safe." Samuel nodded, understanding. He did not push her to stay, nor did he offer advice she did not want. Instead, he offered support, a silent promise that if they needed help, he would provide it. That night, as the fire crackled and the wind howled outside, Nokomis felt a quiet sense of peace. But she knew that the journey ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in weeks, she felt that they were not alone. Samuel's kindness had given them hope, and the warmth of the cabin reminded her that even in the harshest winters there could be safety and comfort. She looked at her children, who were asleep, their faces calm and relaxed, and she allowed herself a small smile. As she drifted off to sleep herself, Nokomis thought of the future, but she did not know what challenges awaited them. But she knew that together they could face them. The world outside the cabin was still cold and dangerous, but inside there was warmth, kindness, and hope. She knew that she had found an unexpected ally in Samuel, someone who could help her children grow strong and safe. For the first time in a long time, she felt that perhaps they could survive this winter, not just with courage, but with care and compassion. The snow continued to fall outside, soft and steady, covering the forest in white. Nokomis dreamed of open fields, safe villages, and bright mornings, but she also dreamed of small acts of kindness, of laughter and firelight, of the possibility that even in a harsh world, humans could show love and care for one another. And for her, that was enough to keep moving forward. Days passed quietly in the cabin, and the snow outside slowly began to melt in the weak winter sun. Nokomis had begun to feel a sense of calm that she had not felt in months, perhaps even years. The weight of constant fear and running from danger had lifted slightly, replaced by a cautious hope.
She could see it in her children, too. Kiona's laughter no longer carried the edge of worry, and little Aylin's wide eyes shone with curiosity instead of fear.
Each morning they rose to a world of pale sunlight and sparkling snow. Samuel would already be tending the fire or fetching water, moving quietly and carefully so as not to disturb the children. Nokomis began to help more actively, chopping small pieces of firewood, melting snow for water, and learning the routines of survival in this cabin with Samuel. There was a rhythm to their days, one built on small acts of care, and Nokomis appreciated the sense of order it brought. For her children it was a new experience, a brief chance to enjoy life without constant danger. One afternoon as the sun began to lower in the sky, Samuel suggested a walk outside. "It is safe for a little while," he said. "The snow is lighter, and the forest is quiet. We can stretch our legs, and the children can play." Nokomis hesitated. The thought of venturing outside, even briefly, made her heart race. The world was unpredictable, and she had learned that every sound could mean danger. But when she looked at her children's eager faces, she realized that they needed this. Breaths. "All right," she said, "but we stay together." The three of them stepped carefully into the snow, Samuel leading the way and Nokomis close behind with Aylin in her arms. Kiona ran a little ahead, throwing small snowballs and laughing. Nokomis smiled despite herself, feeling a warmth in her chest she had not known for weeks. Samuel walked beside her, pointing out footprints in the snow and small signs of animals. "See," he said quietly. "A rabbit passed by here yesterday." Nature is alive, even in winter. It shows us we are not alone. Nokomis nodded, appreciating his words, which seemed both practical and comforting. They walked for some time, exploring the forest near the cabin. Kiona and Aylin played with sticks and snow, while Nokomis and Samuel spoke quietly about small, ordinary things. The weather, the forest, and the simple life of a cabin in the woods. Nokomis realized she had not had a normal conversation in months, not one that was calm or light-hearted. Samuel's company was a relief, and she felt herself trusting him more with each passing day. There was a quiet understanding between them, built not on words alone, but on shared experience and mutual respect. Later that evening, as the children slept, Nokomis and Samuel sat by the fire. Samuel had brought a small pot of stew for dinner, and they shared it silently, letting the warmth of the fire fill the room. After a moment, Samuel spoke.
"You are very strong," he said softly. "The way you care for your children."
"It is admirable. I have seen many people give up, but you keep moving forward." Nokomis looked at him, her eyes tired but steady. "I have no choice," she said. "They are my life. Without them, I am nothing. I must survive for them." Samuel nodded, understanding the depth of her love. As the fire crackled, Nokomis shared stories of her village. She told Samuel about the people, the celebrations, and the simple joys they had known before the raids. Her voice was soft, filled with both nostalgia and sadness. Breath. Samuel listened intently, offering comfort with his presence rather than words. For Nokomis, this was a new feeling, to be heard without judgment, to speak of loss and memory without fear. The cabin, once just a shelter, was becoming a place of understanding and trust. The children woke early the next morning, excited for another day in the snow. Nokomis helped them dress warmly, and they ventured outside again. Samuel suggested teaching the children some basic skills for winter survival. He showed Kiona how to safely cut small pieces of wood for the fire and how to recognize safe paths through the forest. Island, though smaller, eagerly watched and tried to imitate his older brother. Brett that Chinese, Nokomis observed, proud of their curiosity and willingness to learn.
And up over the following days, Nokomis noticed a change in Samuel as well.
He was gentle with the children, patient when they stumbled or asked endless questions.
He told stories from his past, sharing both hardships and small joys.
Nokomis found herself listening with interest, seeing the man behind the cabin's walls.
His kindness was not just a gesture, it was a way of life, and she felt herself growing more comfortable in his presence. Slowly, she realized that the walls she had built around her heart were softening. One evening, as the wind whispered against the cabin walls, Nokomis and Samuel worked together to repair a small hole in the roof. The children played nearby, building tiny snow figures from the melted snow that Samuel had collected earlier. Nokomis handed Samuel a piece of wood, and their hands brushed for a brief moment. She felt a flicker of something unfamiliar, warmth, perhaps even hope that went beyond safety or comfort. Breaths. Samuel glanced at her, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet understanding. Neither spoke, but both felt the unspoken trust growing between them. The next day, Nokomis decided to explore a small clearing beyond the forest with the children.
Samuel followed at a careful distance, ensuring they were safe but giving them freedom to explore.
Kiona ran ahead, discovering tracks in the snow. "Look, Mother! Animals have passed this way." Nokomis knelt beside him, examining the footprints.
Yes,
She said softly. "We are part of this world, too. Nature watches over us, if we are careful." Island laughed, picking up a small pine cone and tossing it lightly into the snow. Nokomis smiled, feeling a simple joy she had not known for a long time. As the sun set, casting golden light across the snow, they returned to the cabin. Nokomis felt a growing sense of gratitude for this small, quiet life. For the first time since fleeing her village, she allowed herself to hope, not just for survival, but for happiness. The warmth of the cabin, the safety it provided, and Samuel's gentle presence created a fragile but real sense of peace. That night, Samuel brought out a small lantern and placed it near the fire. "It is important to have light," he said softly. "Even in the darkest nights, a little light can guide us." Nokomis nodded, understanding more than the words alone conveyed. She had walked through darkness and fear, but this light, both literal and metaphorical, gave her hope. Breath. She held her children close, feeling the strength of their bond and the comfort of a safe place. Days turned into a week, and the children thrived in the warmth of the cabin. But Nokomis felt herself letting go of the constant tension that had ruled her life. She still knew the dangers outside, but inside this small cabin there was trust, safety, and even a hint of happiness. Samuel's quiet care, the laughter of her children, and the rhythm of daily life created a sense of normalcy she had not felt in months. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, Nokomis and Samuel sat together by the fire, watching the flames dance. She felt a sense of calm wash over her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything, for the fire, the food, the warmth, and for your kindness." Samuel looked at her with a gentle smile.
You do not need to thank me, he said.
You and your children have shown me strength and courage. It is an honor to help you. Nokomis felt her heart swell with a quiet emotion. Gratitude, relief, and perhaps something deeper too. As they settled down for the night, Nokomis whispered a soft prayer of thanks. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, she felt hope. Hope for her children, for herself, and for the small family they were slowly becoming. The fire burned steadily. The wind whispered softly outside. And inside the cabin there was warmth, trust, and the quiet beginnings of a bond that could carry them through even the harshest winter. Winter had softened into early spring, but the forest remained cold and quiet. But Nokomis had begun to feel a sense of stability, something she had not experienced in months. The children were healthy and happy, exploring the snowy forest and helping Samuel around the cabin. For a brief moment it seemed as though they could rest without fear. But Nokomis knew that the world outside was still unpredictable. Danger had a way of appearing when it was least expected, and she could not let herself forget that.
One morning, as the sun rose pale and low in the sky, Nokomis noticed unusual footprints in the snow outside the cabin.
They were larger than Samuel's and not like any animal tracks she had seen. Her heart tightened. She motioned for the children to stay inside while she and Samuel went outside to investigate. Samuel's expression was calm but serious. He had seen signs of people traveling through the forest before, and he knew that not all travelers brought kindness. "They might just be hunters," Samuel said quietly. "But we cannot be sure. We must be careful." Nokomis nodded, scanning the surrounding trees. She had learned to notice every sound, every movement. The forest could hide both food and danger, and she could not take any chances. She felt her pulse quicken as they stepped lightly into the snow, following the tracks at a safe distance. The footprints led toward a small ridge where the snow was thinner and the ground harder. But Samuel crouched down and studied the tracks. "These are fresh," he said. "Not more than a few hours old. Whoever made them is close. We need to plan carefully." Nokomis's mind raced. She thought about her children sleeping safely inside, about the small trust she had built with Samuel, and about the fragile peace they had found. She refused to let that peace be shattered. Bait. They returned to the cabin and discussed a plan. Samuel suggested hiding the children in a small storage room behind the fireplace, a space they had rarely used. Nokomis carried Aelin inside while Kiona helped her arrange blankets and pillows to make the hiding place comfortable. "Stay here until I call you," she whispered. "Rasp, do not make a sound, no matter what."
The children nodded, sensing the seriousness in her voice. Samuel prepared the cabin for possible visitors.
He blocked the main door with heavy furniture and ensured that the fire was low, giving just enough light to make the room visible but not bright enough to draw attention.
Nokomis felt a chill, not from the cold, but from anticipation.
She had survived raids and dangers before, but this felt different. This was unknown, unpredictable, and close. Hours passed with tense silence. Outside, the wind carried faint sounds, and Nokomis strained to hear anything unusual. Suddenly, a shadow moved along the edge of the forest. Samuel's hand rested on the small axe at his side. Nokomis held her breath, her mind racing with possibilities. She reminded herself to stay calm, to trust Samuel, and to protect the children above all else. The visitors approached cautiously. Nokomis saw them clearly now. 2 men, bundled against the cold, moving slowly and scanning the forest. They were travelers, but their faces were not friendly. Samuel stepped to the door and spoke in a firm voice. "Who is there?" he called. The men paused, startled by the unexpected presence. They exchanged a few words in low tones, and Samuel could see suspicion in their eyes. "They may be looking for trouble," Samuel whispered to Nokomis.
We must act carefully. Nokomis nodded.
She had learned that fear could cloud judgment, but clear thinking could protect her family. She stayed close to Samuel, ready to respond if necessary, but also hoping that the men would pass without incident. To her relief, the men did not enter the cabin. They lingered at the edge of the clearing, glancing toward the cabin, and then moved on slowly through the forest. Nokomis watched them until they disappeared from view. Her heart gradually slowed, but tension remained. Breaths. Samuel checked the cabin carefully, ensuring that no traces of their presence remained. "They will come back if they are searching for people," he said. "We must be ready." Nokomis nodded, appreciating his cautious wisdom. That evening, after the danger seemed to pass, Samuel brought food to the children and Nokomis. The warmth of the cabin and the smell of the stew helped ease the tension, but Nokomis could not shake the memory of the men outside. She sat by the fire, thinking about her village and the constant threat of harm that had forced her to flee. Desperation. She realized that even in safety, the world could remind her of fear.
Yet, she also knew that courage was necessary, not just for her, but for her children.
The next morning, Samuel suggested preparing for future risks. He taught Nokomis how to secure the cabin better, how to create warning signs in the snow, and how to move silently in case anyone approached. He also encouraged her to teach the children basic safety skills without frightening them. Nokomis felt a strange sense of empowerment. She had always been strong for her children, but now she was learning to plan, to think ahead, and to take control of their safety in a new way. Over the following days, Nokomis and Samuel worked together to reinforce the cabin. They stacked extra firewood by the windows to block sight lines, dug small trenches to prevent the snow from drifting against the walls, and even created a hidden path behind the cabin in case a quick escape was necessary. Kiona and Aelin watched with fascination, learning from their mother and Samuel. Nokomis felt proud of her children's resilience and eagerness to learn. Their curiosity and courage brought a small light of hope to her heart. Despite the lingering tension, the family continued to find moments of joy. They explored the forest carefully, built small snow shelters, and played simple games near the cabin. Nokomis noticed that the children's laughter was returning, though she remained alert. Samuel encouraged them, sharing stories from his own past and teaching them to respect nature and the land. The cabin, once just a shelter, had become a place of learning, growth, and careful happiness. One evening, as the sun set in soft shades of pink and orange, Samuel and Nokomis sat together by the fire. "You have done well," Samuel said quietly. "Your children are safe, strong, and learning. You have protected them, even in the face of danger."
Nokomis smiled faintly.
"I must," she said. "I cannot fail them. They are my world." Samuel nodded, understanding the depth of her love and determination. The snow outside had begun to melt, revealing patches of the forest floor. Nokomis realized that spring would soon arrive, bringing longer days and slightly warmer nights. She felt a sense of cautious hope. The danger was not gone, but she now knew they could face it together. The lessons they had learned, and the children's resilience gave her strength she had not realized she possessed.
A few nights later, while the children slept safely in the hidden room, Nokomis and Samuel heard distant voices outside.
The sound made her heart race. She peeked through the small cracks in the cabin walls and saw figures moving among the trees. Samuel quietly whispered instructions. "Stay calm. Remember what we practiced." Nokomis followed his lead, moving silently and ensuring the children remained hidden. The figures outside moved slowly, scanning the forest and approaching the cabin cautiously. Samuel's calmness helped Nokomis steady her nerves. She reminded herself of the skills she had learned, observing without panic acting only when necessary and protecting her children above all else. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then, finally, the figures passed by without noticing the cabin. The danger had not disappeared, but they had survived once again. The next morning, Nokomis took a deep breath and stepped outside with the children. "We are strong," she said softly, holding Aelin's hand.
We can face what comes next, together. Kiona nodded, his small face serious but determined. Nokomis felt a surge of pride and relief.
They had survived the threats, learned to be cautious, and grown stronger as a family. Samuel joined them, smiling faintly. "The world is still dangerous," he said. "But you have learned to protect yourselves. That is more important than anything else." Nokomis looked at him, realizing how much she trusted this man who had offered them shelter, guidance, and care. For the first time in months, she felt a quiet hope, not just for survival, but for the possibility of a future where they could live safely and with dignity. And so, in the small cabin on the edge of the forest, Nokomis and her children continued to grow stronger. They had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, but they had survived. Each day brought lessons, laughter, and moments of quiet joy. The snow slowly receded. The days grew longer, and the world outside remained unpredictable. Yet inside the cabin there was warmth, trust, and hope. The kind of hope that could carry a family through even the hardest times. The snow had finally begun to melt completely, revealing the rich earth of the forest floor and the first green shoots of spring. The days were longer now, and the sunlight warmed the small clearing around the cabin. Nokomis looked out over the forest, feeling a sense of cautious hope. But, for the first time since fleeing her village, she allowed herself to imagine a future where they could live safely, not just survive, but thrive. The children ran about outside, their laughter carrying through the air, free from the constant fear that had once shadowed their lives. Inside the cabin, Samuel was tending the fire and preparing a simple breakfast. Nokomis watched him, her heart filled with gratitude. He had given them warmth, food, and protection through the harshest part of winter. More than that, he had given her hope, a chance to believe that there were good people in the world, people willing to help without asking for anything in return. She felt a quiet sense of trust toward him, one that had grown slowly over weeks of shared work, shared stories, and quiet companionship.
After breakfast, Nokomis and Samuel stepped outside with the children.
Breath. The forest was alive with the sounds of spring, birds chirping, leaves rustling, and small animals moving through the undergrowth. Nokomis pointed to a patch of wildflowers beginning to bloom. "Look," she said to the children, "the world can be beautiful, even after hard times." Kiona and Ailin knelt to touch the delicate flowers, fascinated by the colors and shapes. Nokomis smiled, feeling a joy she had not known in a long time. As they worked together to prepare the cabin for the warmer months, Samuel spoke softly. "You have done well," he said. "Your children are strong and learning. You are strong yourself. This place can be a home for you if you choose it." Nokomis paused, considering his words. But she had thought that they would have to continue fleeing, always moving, always hiding. But perhaps she thought this cabin could be more than a shelter. It could be a true home. Over the next few days, they worked to improve the cabin and its surroundings. Nokomis and the children gathered firewood and water, and Samuel taught them how to plant small vegetables and herbs near the cabin. Kiona learned how to dig shallow trenches to guide water for the plants, and Ailin helped scatter seeds in the soft earth. Nokomis watched them, feeling a deep sense of pride. Her children were not just surviving, they were growing, learning, and finding joy in simple work. One afternoon, as they rested by the fire inside the cabin, Nokomis shared more stories of her village. She spoke of traditions, of songs and dances, and of the warmth of community that had once surrounded her. Samuel listened with care, fascinated by the richness of her life and culture. Breath. Is beautiful, he said softly. Even in difficult times you carried your traditions with you. But is strength? Nokomis smiled faintly, touched by his words. She had feared that all she had loved would be lost forever, but sharing her memories reminded her that some things could never be taken away. That evening, the wind was calm, and the air carried the sweet scent of early spring flowers. Nokomis looked at Samuel as he tended the fire, and felt a quiet sense of gratitude that went beyond simple thanks. "You have done so much for us," she said. "Great. More than I can ever explain." Samuel looked at her with gentle eyes. "You do not need to explain," he said. "We help each other, and that is enough. You and your children have taught me as much as I have taught you."
The children had fallen asleep early, tired from a day of planting and exploring.
Nokomis and Samuel sat quietly by the fire watching the flames. For a long while neither spoke, simply enjoying the warmth and the feeling of safety. Finally, Samuel broke the silence. "It will be Christmas soon," he said softly.
Perhaps this year it can be special for all of us.
Nokomis felt her heart lift. Christmas had always been a distant memory, one filled with longing and loss.
But now, she realized, it could be a moment of hope and family, even in the small cabin surrounded by the forest. In the following days, they prepared for a simple Christmas celebration. Nokomis helped the children make small decorations from twigs, leaves, and flowers. Samuel collected pine cones and gathered berries to create a small centerpiece for the table. They laughed together, and for the first time, the children experienced the kind of joyful anticipation they had only heard of in stories. Nokomis felt her heart swell with warmth, realizing that they were creating a new kind of family, one built on trust, care, and shared moments of happiness. On Christmas Eve, Samuel brought the family to the cabin's front clearing. He had built a small fire outside and arranged a circle of logs for them to sit on. Nokomis and the children joined him, their faces glowing from the firelight. The forest around them was quiet, the snow glistening under the soft moonlight. They sang simple songs, told stories, and shared a small meal of bread, stew, and berries. For Nokomis, it was a moment of peace she had not thought possible. The fear, the running, and the loss seemed far away, replaced by warmth, laughter, and hope. As the evening drew to a close, Samuel looked at Nokomis with a gentle smile. "There is room in my heart for you this Christmas," he said softly. Nokomis felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was more than words. It was an acknowledgement of trust, care, and love. Breath. She realized that she had found a protector, a guide, and a friend who would walk alongside her and her children in the uncertain days ahead. She nodded, her eyes shining. "And there is room in mine for you," she replied quietly. The night passed peacefully. Nokomis held her children close as they slept, feeling their warmth and listening to their quiet breathing. She thought of the journey they had endured, the running through snow and forests, the fear of danger, the long nights without comfort, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. They had survived, not just because of her courage, but because of trust, kindness, and the small moments of hope that had carried them forward. The next morning, sunlight poured into the cabin, illuminating the decorations the children had made. Kiona and Island woke excitedly, eager to continue the celebration. Nokomis smiled, helping them arrange a simple breakfast by the fire. Samuel joined them, and together they shared the meal, laughing and talking about small dreams for the future. For the first time in many months, the cabin felt like a true home, a place of safety, warmth, and belonging. As the days went on, Nokomis realized that their life in the cabin could continue in peace. The forest, once a place of fear, was now a place of learning and wonder. The children grew stronger each day, learning from Samuel and from their mother. Nokomis felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had not only protected her children but also given them a chance to thrive. The bond between the four of them, Nokomis, Kiona, Island, and Samuel, grew stronger with each passing day. Spring arrived fully, bringing new life to the forest. Flowers bloomed, animals returned, and the air was filled with the sounds of growth and renewal. Nokomis and the children explored more confidently, learning about the plants and animals around them. Samuel continued to teach them skills for survival, but also lessons about kindness, trust, and patience. The cabin had become more than a shelter. It was a place of growth, learning, and joy. One quiet evening, Nokomis looked around the cabin, seeing the small improvements they had made together. The planted vegetables, the decorations, the organized firewood. She felt a sense of gratitude that words could not fully express. "We have come far," she whispered to Samuel. He nodded, smiling. "Yes, and we will continue to grow," he said. Together. Nokomis felt her heart swell with hope, realizing that their journey had not just been about survival. It had been about building a family, finding trust, and discovering love in unexpected places. And so, in the small cabin at the edge of the forest, Nokomis and her children began a new chapter of their lives. They had survived the harsh winter, faced danger, and learned to trust again. Christmas had brought them hope, warmth, and the realization that even in a world of uncertainty, love and kindness could create a home. Nokomis held her children close, looked at Samuel, and felt a deep peace. The journey was not over, but for the first time in a long time, she believed that the future could be bright, safe, and full of joy. The snow melted completely, revealing the forest in all its beauty. Birds sang, rivers ran freely, and sunlight bathed the clearing in warmth. Nokomis, Samuel, Kiona, and Island stood together outside the cabin, feeling the world around them and the bond between them. They had endured hardship, faced fear, and discovered the strength of trust, love, and hope. And as they looked toward the horizon, they knew that together they could face whatever came next, always, and with courage in their hearts.